you know that it's BMW M's 50th birthday this year? Doesn't matter if you don't, because we've arranged the party and it involves this, the M3 Competition, which is monstrously fast. 510 horsepower, rear wheel drive, and the sort of reactivity you expect from a thoroughbred sports car. Woo! This machine is a big step up on its predecessor and a fantastic illustration of the magic that the M Division can produce. Because after 50 years, these guys know how to make a performance petrol car. Whether it's got 4 doors or 2 doors, they can make it. But 50 years on, times are changing. And they are now confronted with a new era, oh blimey, a new era of electrification. And we brought along another guest to the party, which represents this new and exciting time. Because next to this M3 competition, we have the M Division's first electric model. All right, it's not a red-blooded M car just yet. Don't know if they'll ever do one based off the i4, but the M50 is, well, it's a very, very fast, very high-powered machine. And we've got one on charge. So I'm just going to let this M3 cool down, and I'm going to have a cool down so we can start this party and see exactly what the M Division is up to in 2022. Happy 50th.
While we're on the subject of electric cars, let me just divert your attention to how many EVs we have on Cinch, with everything from Nissan Leaf to Porsche Taycan Turbo S's in our digital showroom. Oh, and we've the widest range of cars to buy entirely online, so make sure you check out cinch.co.uk when shopping for your next motor. Right, back to the i4.
Right, so before I jump in that i4, I thought it might be worth looking at a few of the differences and similarities that these two cars have. Of course, this is an M-tuned model, not a red-blooded one. This is the full real deal, as you can tell, firstly, by the massive openings on the front of the M3 down here. There is no mistaking the fact that, firstly, this has a big radiator for a big hungry petrol engine behind it, and there are big intakes down here, brake cooling, all of the stuff that petrol performance cars need to be cooled when they're going very quickly. This, by comparison, obviously doesn't have any openings here. It's just got a bunch of sensors in there. You do have some openings through here, but it's a far cleaner design. But also, there are a lot of similarities. Got the same kind of headlight design, same kind of side light design, and of course, even though it's got fake grills, they don't look too different, do they? To the untrained eye, maybe you confuse the two cars. But, well, there's no confusing the muscle of that M3. This is a slightly more slender silhouette, but they do share the same mirror design. That's aerodynamics, and that's because the M3 design there has been passed on to this car here just to make it slightly slipperier through the air. And then if you look down here, we've got still pretty big brakes on some pretty sticky Pirelli tyres, but compared to the M3s, well, they are monster brake calipers. And then come round to the back of the M50, which I think looks really good, but there's far less going on. You've got a bit of diffuserage down here. Is that a word? I think so. And you've obviously got a little bit of a lip spoiler here, but otherwise, very clean, quite simple design. The business end of the M3, by comparison, is not clean and simple because lovely carbon fiber spoiler up here, but you've got a carbon fiber diffuser down here with 4 exhaust pipes, and they make a really, really good racket. They sound pretty epic, actually. So there's no mistaking which one of these cars is the red-blooded M model. Obviously it's this one, but that i4 M50 has 795 Newton meters of torque. 795 Newton meters of torque, insane. I think it's going to be pretty epic on circuit. It does 0 to 62 miles per hour in 3.9 seconds, identical to this M3. So, I mean, given that that's got all-wheel drive as well, I think that's going to be ridiculously fast, isn't it? So, without further ado, let's hit the asphalt. So this is the M Division's first effort at an electric car, and well, what a tremendous effort it is. From the get-go, it's not a red-blooded M car, that is true, but the performance figures, well, 3.9 seconds to 62. It will do 140 miles per hour, which for an electric car is pretty good going. And it weighs over 2.2 tons. Yet, with 795 Newton meters of torque, it will give you a right old kick up the backside. I don't feel like this car's gonna want to do this for much longer. You can feel the weight of this thing because the dampers are in sport mode, but 2.2 and a bit tons, you can't hide that, can you? It also has over 430 horsepower, so it's not short on grunt all round, I think we can all agree. And it feels really composed. This is the amazing thing about electric cars, and no doubt the M Division will have noticed as soon as they got their hands on this machine, is that because the centre of gravity in this car, and all electric cars with batteries in their floor, because it's so low, the natural handling is actually really good. This is the all-wheel drive car. In fact, you can only get all-wheel drive in this car. The rear-wheel drive car, by the way, if you want to watch our video review of that, click the link above or in the description below, and I'll talk a bit more about boot space and infotainment systems and all the slightly less exciting stuff in that video. Here we can focus on the fun, because it's an M-fettled car, right? And these guys got their hands on this machine and would have noticed that natural inherent lower centre of gravity, and they've been able to play with it in this twin motor car, which I must say feels extremely safe and planted. So I'm going to do the only sane thing, and that is to turn stability control off. So many warning systems there telling me don't do it, don't do it. You don't get that in the M3, you just press the button and it goes off. Obviously this isn't the full M car. If they do one, my God, it's going to be quick, isn't it? Right, naturally pushes a bit, but you can pull yourself out like a front wheel drive hot hatch actually. The grip on the front axle's good, so actually as you press the accelerator, God, these brakes are mighty. It naturally pushes, but it's on power that you can get the car to hook up. So I'm gonna have to build up the confidence. My God, over 100. Woo! How are these brakes withstanding this? Yeah. Oh, blimey. Yeah, get on the throttle, Sam, come on. Accelerator, it's not a throttle. Always get that mixed up. Electric cars don't have throttles. Oh, okay, we've outbraked ourselves. But it still turns in, look at that. The grip. These cars, they blow my mind. I had this in that Audi e-tron GT I drove in a recent video. Click the link for that one if you want to see that. And we put that up against the RS5, and the e-tron GT, like this, had this natural stability because of its low centre of gravity. But this i4, because it has the M badge on it, oh, it rotates on. If you lift off and turn in, it just starts to hint at rotation, but then it just digs in and grips. Interestingly, the brake pedal, I think, on this is actually really good, because given that it's regenerating, it's got a load of stuff going on, way more than just the pad and disc system that you got in that M3. A lot more going on here, a bit of regen happening, yet the pedal does feel consistent. There's maybe a little bit of feel, but I mean, that M3 doesn't have tons of feel anyway. They're just easy to regulate. And the steering in this mode now is weighted up. There's a tiny bit of feel just when you get to the edge of adhesion on the tyre. You start to feel the tyre scrub, but it doesn't shout and scream at you. It doesn't in the M3 either, to be fair, but that M3 just, because it's a rear-wheel drive car, and that is a key thing we should say. Obviously this car has an enormous traction advantage, but because that's the rear-wheel drive car, it has a rotation advantage, and because it's an M car, it means it's just really keen to get to those apexes, whereas this car, probably partly because it's not a red-blooded M model, so it doesn't quite have the agility plumbed into it, and also just because it's heavier and the focus is different, it doesn't quite, oh, he says that as he gets a big rotation on. Just hearing those tyres scream and complain. But yeah, it just doesn't rotate in with the same eagerness. You have to get on the power to sort of pull the car in. But now, as I'm feeling, the front tyres are just starting to overheat a little bit. So it's not pulling me in quite as nicely as it was before. The torque vectoring isn't working quite as effectively when the contact patch, that's a solution to rotation, put a tyre on the grass. When the contact patch is just starting to overheat, it's not pulling the car in quite as much, but my goodness, this thing is fast. It's fast. For a first go at electric cars, whew. Let me calm down and drive it a little bit more sensible. Let's work with the car not against it, as I was doing there. This will be my practice because we will put these two cars head to head for some timed laps. Not immediately comparable cars, not the closest in BMW's lineup. Even if one was from a rival brand, it wouldn't be a natural competitor, but come on, it's the 50th birthday of BMW M, and I've got Rockingham Racetrack. Of course we're going to put them up together.
Now, while the M3 Competition and i4 M50 both sprint to 62 in 3.9 seconds, as you can see by the different arrival speeds into turn 1, the M3 Competition already has the edge. It's also a lot more hyperactive, contrasting the composed, flat-cornering i4 M50, which looks and sounds comparably bland. But come on, it's still absolutely flying along, isn't it? The car's composure is the result of having the weight low in the structure and spread fairly evenly back to front. The rear-wheel drive M3 Comp, on the other hand, needs to be wrestled from bend to bend, and the 510 horsepower delivered by its twin-turbocharged straight-six motor needs to be carefully managed. But do that, and this is one epic engine and gearbox combo, easily one of the best out there from any class. As mind-bending as the M50's 795 Nm of torque may sound, with all-wheel drive, it's delivered easily into the asphalt, so much so that once the car stops threatening to understeer, you can basically use the right pedal like an on-off switch. Then you're zapped to the next bend with minimal drama. Very quick, very effective, but nowhere near as exciting as the M3. No surprises there. What is surprising is how strong the i4's brakes are. They just work and work, despite being smaller than the M3's and having to slow down more mass. The M3 Competition really does feel lighter, but much is to do with the quickness of its front end, which masks the weight. Get the car into a wobble though, and the heft of this saloon does become apparent on track, as does the strain on its poor, suffering rear tyres, which, by the end of our shoot, were feeling very, very used. Still, they just hung on for our timed lap. Just.
So, no surprises there. The M3 Competition was faster than the i4 M50. This, of course, is the red-blooded model. It did a 1 minute 20 dead, while the i4 M50 did a 1:25.1. Not a bad time at all, given that it's about half a ton heavier and it's not a proper M model. But I was quite surprised, given how badly this car was struggling to put the power down towards the end of my quick lap. It was just starting to oversteer. The traction was becoming an issue. But more of an issue, I think, was the fact that this car started to protect its battery temperatures right at the end of the lap. It just started to dial back the power by about 10% because the battery was getting quite hot. A lot of electric cars do that, but it probably cost it about a second. Still, the status quo is as we expected. Our champion, of course, is the M3 Competition, and what a fitting way to say happy birthday to BMW